Hi everyone, welcome back to today's book talk. Today we are doing a review on the Was I Ever series by Naomi Loud. I am doing this review in my husband's gaming chair because unfortunately my stool that I normally film these videos in broke and I need to figure out how to put this leg back on it. If y'all have any suggestions, feel free to tell me. First, I must say that I absolutely fell in love with these books because they're not just the typical cookie cutter happily ever after. They are very real. They go through some real problems, plus being like kind of fantasy, the future, going in the past, reincarnation, that kind of stuff. It's very heavy in those and all. The first one more than anything, but the other two definitely have those aspects in them as well. But they're very real in the aspect of their stories and their abuse and things that they go through in life, and the fact that the ending's not just a typical happily ever after, like we have kids, we're married, we once upon a time fairy tale thing. It's real. It's I'm a work in progress. It's I made it through the big stuff and now we're here and I can't wait to continue to progress and get better. Very spicy, and I love that, but it still has a lot of those real aspects that makes you feel like you can relate to it a lot more than some happily ever afters, because happily ever afters is relative in real life. So starting with number 1 in the Was I Ever series, it's Was I Ever Here, and it follows Byzantine and Sunny. The first in the Was I Ever series begins with two fated souls destined to end in tragedy. Byzantine is revived from death, remembering their past lives together. After 5 years, he finds her in a heated moment of revenge and now refuses to let her go. Sunny has led a life of tragedy and depression. Little does she know, her past lives were very much the same throughout these centuries. Sunny logically knows she should fear the man stalking her, but she can't help feel this magnetic pull to him. Going through the ups and downs and struggling to tell the truth, leave the fated souls hoping to find their happily ever after despite the tragedy their previous lives have ended in. Oh my god, this book put me in so many feels. I felt so many emotions going through it because this book really shows, it goes in depth about depression and how real and bad depression can be on your shoulders, and that weight that you have to carry around with you day in and day out, and the fact that this character has had to go through it century after century after century, and although she doesn't realize that, but she feels it, like she knows. She goes through so much tragedy and she doesn't know what to do with it, but she wants to end it. And in this life, we're hoping that they find a different story, hurt each other in different ways, but we're hoping that that doesn't happen this time. Byzantine is struggling because he doesn't know how to break to her the news, but he doesn't want to lose her, like desperately is holding on to her and cannot stand to lose her again in this way, and is trying to figure out how to keep them together in this life and not end in tragedy. Was on a roller coaster ride of emotions throughout this book. It was very deep to read, but also it was easy to follow, but it was just a lot emotionally. And after I finished reading it and taking a step back and then going back to look at it, I was like, wow, that was a lot of like hard emotion in that book, a lot of struggling and depression, and like when you step back and you just take a look at it, it's like, wow, that's really deep. That's a lot. I'm struggling with words to describe. July reads, and when I posted that, I was like, I'm in awe. Like, I have no words to describe this. Y'all really just need to read it for yourself and feel those emotions like I did. The Was I Ever series continues with Was I Ever Real, with an enemies to lovers trope. The banter and love-hate relationship that Connor and Lenix have kept me entertained throughout the entire book. Lenix has been hiding from her past for 13 years, feeling comfortable with her new life of secrets and lies, but soon her past comes back to find her when her brother threatens to drag her back to the hell that she escaped from. A cult disguised as a commune of people under the servitude of a false prophet. That's heavy and also very real. Her best and worst option is to create a deal with the devil she married in hopes of evading the devil she escaped. Connor was thrown into the head role of one of the most dangerous crime organizations in California at an early age. There, he coincidentally ended up in the same diner as a runaway girl in a wedding dress. An unexplained feeling to help the girl led him to fund the start of her new life, but she didn't know this. Years later, that same girl reappears, and neither of them realize who the other is. A deal is struck, and the games begin. But what happens when the games turn to real life? Visions and odd feelings leave both with questions when a psychic reveals that only they have the answers. My. Connor and Lenix. I love the way that they challenge each other and how their banter is hilarious and they just go at it. It keeps you completely entertained, as well as the storyline, which is really good. It doesn't go as deep into like past lives or future. That is also an aspect in this, as you can tell, the little hint that I gave about the psyche. But this one's more along the lines of keeping her safe. Not keeping her safe from herself like book one, but keeping her safe from her past, from a life that she escaped of servitude and abuse and just overall horribleness, which is also a real life aspect that exists in today's world, that the author puts both fantasy and real life into one. Like she mixed the two so perfectly. Like, it's beautifully written. I love how they all come together. Connor and Lenix's story also bleeds into book 3, which also has to deal with that she escaped from, and now in book 3 her sister's going to be rescued from. Seeing how both of them deny that their love for each other, like going throughout this book just being like, no, I hate you, but in reality you actually love them and you've loved them for a long time. You just couldn't admit it to yourself. You didn't want to look deeper. You didn't want to actually take these signs and things that you're hearing in your heart and your head for real. And then in the end, after a bunch of bad things happen, it's like, oh my God, yes, and I cannot stand to lose this person. They are my everything, my forever. I need them. That is Connor and Lenix. Now moving on to Was I Ever Free? After 24 years and a life of abuse, brainwashing, and blind servitude, Lucy is ready to escape the religious cult she was born into. With the help of her sister, Lucy tries to acclimate to the free world. After a year, the innocent girl needs a drastic change of adventure and freedom in hopes of finding herself. Convincing her overprotective sister to allow her to go on a road trip with the silent hacker of the Sin Eaters as a chaperone, Lucy finally embarks on this trip that leads to much more than just her freedom. Bastian, the silent, stoic hacker with a dark and abusive past, hides behind a mask, not allowing emotions through, but begrudgingly embarking on a trip down Highway 66 with a sheltered and innocent Lucy, begins to crack the edges of the mask he has carefully curated. One familiarity after the other leads him to believe that Lucy and this road trip aren't just another coincidence, but fate. This is the hard one where the guy falls first. Ugh. Their story is absolutely beautiful, and everything that Lucy has had to go through is tragic, just like the other two women. She went through 24 years of abuse and brainwashing, and now she's having to relearn all of these different things and trying to figure out who she really is as a person and where she goes from here and how she fits into this new world that she's never been a part of and knows nothing about. And Lucy convinces him to help teach her, and that leads him to just full on, like, he's trying to deny these feelings, says this would never happen, he doesn't deserve this, he's a horrible person, he's gone through so much, he's done too much, she deserves better, but in actuality, she's all that he wants. Bastian struggles with addiction, which is also something that is really big in today's world, a really big part of the book, really big part of his character, and he's struggling through going to have that urge and that need and wanting to do these things, and you're having to stave off those urges and cravings for said drug. So at the very beginning, when he decides to get clean because he's like at rock bottom clean, but while he's getting clean, he's having hallucinations and seeing things, and turns out that he's seeing the future, and he's seeing Lucy, and he's seeing their future together, which, spoiler, these things start popping up on the road trip. He's like, I've seen this before, this from, and it's beautiful to see how it all comes together, and how at the end, how he tells her these things, and she's like, I quoted it and I wrote it down because it's like my absolute favorite. Would you believe me if I told you I saw our future, Luce? Let me be yours. Tell me I can be yours. You were always meant to be mine, Bastian. Let me be yours too. Like, absolute perfection, okay? I cannot thank Naomi Loud enough for bringing these books to life, because when I tell you they're so beautifully written, it's merging the two. Merging the unreal with reality, and I think that she did a phenomenal job writing those and having them come together and writing tragic, dark story with a perfect ending, but isn't perfect, because they're still growing, they're still human, they're still finding their place in this world and with each other and in their relationships. And I think that it is a beautiful thing to continue to see progress, because in real life, happily ever afters are relative. So happy that I get to see in a book that it's just different than what you typically would see when you're reading. So thank you, Naomi Loud, for bringing these books to our reality. I appreciate you, and I cannot wait to see you in like 13 days in Boston. Mwah.